Good evening and welcome to my channel. Today I am going to talk about a poem, An Elementary School Classroom in a Slum, and this poem is composed by Stephen Spender. This poem is class 12 standard and this is the second poem in Flamingo. The poem is about social inequality, social injustice, and it talks about the lack of facilities, lack of opportunities for that particular sector of or section of society which is below the poverty line. In short, the poet is talking about the slum children. This poem has 4 stanzas. Stanza 1 talks about the children sitting in the classroom of an elementary school in a slum. Stanza 2 talks about the physical condition of the classroom and the things placed on the walls of the classroom. Stanza 3 talks about the relevance of the things placed on the walls of the classroom, and stanza 4 talks about the solution. The poet Stephen Spender is an optimist. He raises a very important issue, but at the same time, he is also trying to give the solution. So stanza 4 talks about the solution. The poem talks about 3 different aspects. The first one is nature. The poet believes that nature is a big teacher and we learn a lot from nature. But in the poem, what we find that the children living in the slum, they don't have the access to the world of nature. No, they don't have access symbolically, not physically. So the poet says that these children, they are living below the poverty line, they are busy earning their own livelihood every day. So nature becomes insignificant for them. What the poet wants, that they must understand the importance of nature and they must learn from nature. Because nature, with all its forms, has so many things to teach us. So this is the first aspect. The poet wants these children to be exposed to the world of nature so that they get inspired by nature. Now the second important issue about the poem is the purpose of education. If you talk in the broader term, education is responsible for the overall development of a child, is the foundation stone of a child, on which he builds up the building of his life. But apart from that, if you talk about the children of the slum, education for them is gaining opportunities in life. Now the poet is very clear in saying this, that if an education system fails to create opportunities in the life of these poor children, the very basic purpose of education stands defeated. So this is the second aspect. And third aspect is about all those slum children, and the poet says that if you don't create opportunities for them, if you don't bring them in the mainstream of life, then a day will come when they are going to pose a serious threat to the law and order of your society, of the situation, of the peace of the society. So the poet wants the energy of these children to be channelized right from the elementary level, so that they get involved in the constructive way of life, so that they can add up to the development of the society instead of creating a threat to the society. Let's start with the first stanza of the poem. As I told you earlier, stanza 1 is about the children sitting in the classroom of the elementary school in a slum. Now if you look at the very first line, it says, far, far from gusty waves. Let's try and understand this word gusty. Gusty means strong. Gusty waves means strong waves of the sea. Now far, far from. This word far has been repeated twice. So the poem starts with a figure of speech, and that is repetition. And we use repetition to emphasize on a particular word or idea. Now this word far has been emphasized. That means the poet wants to say that these children are far away from being inspired by the powerful forces of nature like the strong waves of the sea. Now if you look at the faces of these children's faces like rootless weeds. Just look at the word like. So it is quite clear that whenever you use the word as or like for comparison, this is the case of simile. Now the children's faces have been compared to rootless weeds. Now look at this word, the phrase rootless weeds. Now this is the case of oxymoron, because weeds are unwanted plants, okay, but can there be any plant without a root? So two different ideas are put together. Rootless weeds. Now how does it apply to these children? So poet could have said that they are like weeds. Weeds means unwanted plant coming from absolutely nowhere. Now rootless refers to their background. And things are symbolic. The poet wants to say that they look like rootless weeds as if they don't seem to be belonging to anywhere. In short, he is referring to their malnutrition, undernourishment. Now their hair torn round their pallor. Pallor is pale face. Pale face means almost colorless face, and especially when a child is undernourished, then obviously lack of blood, the face is almost white or light yellow, yellowish kind of. So they have their hair, they have the matted hair kind of, not a very maintained kind of hair. And the hair is scattered on their pale face. That again shows their malnutrition. Now 4 children are being talked about in the poem. The first child. The first child is a tall girl. And look at the phrase weighed down head. Now this weighed word comes from weight. That means burden. So if we take the literal meaning of the line, then you may say that, well, the child might have been carrying a burden on her head. But as I told you, things are symbolical. So this child, this tall girl, she is under the tremendous burden of household responsibilities. So whenever she comes to the school from home, she always looks like a listless person. She doesn't show any interest in the things going on. So weighed down head refers to the responsibilities which she might have been having at her home. So this is the first child, tall girl with her weighed down head. The second child is a paper seeming boy. Now look at the word paper seeming. Paper seeming refers to a very lean and thin child with rat's eyes. Now here rat's eyes is a case of metaphor, because the eyes of this paper seeming boy has been directly compared to the eyes of the rats. So this is a case of metaphor. And you know the difference between simile and metaphor? Metaphor is a direct comparison without using as or like. So now his eyes have been compared to the eyes of the rats, and it has 2 implications. Number 1, his eyes are smaller like those of the rats, and number 2, he seems to be looking for food all the time like the rats. So this was the case of second child. Let's talk about the third one. The third child is stunted. Look at the word stunted. Stunted means dwarf, or a child of a very short height. Now this child is of very short height, and at the same time this child has been unlucky also. So he was the unlucky hire of twisted bones. Look at the word hire and then twisted bones. Hire means something which you have inherited. Now this child has inherited from his father the disease of twisted bones or backbone twisting. And that's why he has been unlucky. First, he was of short height. Second, he had inherited a genetic disease of twisted bones from his father. Now look at the word reciting. Now this word reciting, it has 2 different implications. The child recites means if you are reading something in a loud voice. That is reciting. So one is he is reciting his lesson from his desk. So the child is reciting his lesson from his desk, and at the same time he is also reciting the NAL disease of his father. NAL disease is a complicated disease, a disease which is almost incurable. So this child has inherited an incurable disease from his father, because if there is any disease of backbones, you might have been knowing that it's a very complicated kind of operation, because doctors generally don't prefer to go for the operation of the backbones. So this is again a medical kind of, is a field of medical science. Let us come back to the poem. So this child recites the complicated disease of his father. Now let's talk about the fourth child. So the fourth child in the first stanza. Now look at the line at the back of the dim class. Look at this word dim. It has two implications. Number one, a dim class which doesn't have proper lighting arrangement. It could be dark or something. But there is a symbolical implication of this word dim also. Dim here refers to a dull class where not many learning activities are going on. So at the back of the dim class, there is one unnoted, sweet and young child. This is the fourth child in the first stanza. So there is a child who is very sweet and young, and he is unnoted. Unnoted means no one is taking any notice of him. So that child is sitting at the back of the dim class, and his eyes live in a dream. That means he appears to be dreaming. Dreaming of what? Dreaming of squirrel's game in the tree. So he is dreaming about squirrels playing in the trees or in the tree room other than this. Now this is a very unique situation. You can say that the child was physically present in the classroom, but mentally he was somewhere else. So he was thinking of the squirrel's game in the tree room. That means he was not at all interested in the things going on in the class. So this was about the first stanza. In the next stanza, that is stanza number 2, I'll talk about the physical condition of the classroom, and authorities have put up some pictures on the walls of the classroom to inspire the children. So I'll just talk about in details about those pictures in the second stanza. Let's start with the second stanza of the poem. As I told you earlier, the second stanza talks about the actual condition of the classroom. Now on the walls of the classroom, the authorities have put up some pictures. Now putting up pictures on the walls, they signify the dream of a person. Now take for example, suppose you have your own bedroom and you just place a poster on the wall of the bedroom. That shows your dream. That shows where you want to be. That shows what you want to achieve. Now similarly, in the elementary school classroom of the slum, the teachers or the authorities have put on 5 different pictures on the walls of the classroom to create different kinds of dreams for the children. Now all the 5 pictures are relevant. The photographs are relevant for them. They talk about different kinds of life, different kinds of dreams they should actually have. So you can say that those pictures placed on the walls of the classroom, they are kinds of windows of opportunities. Now in this stanza, there is a contradiction between 2 different kinds of windows. One, the windows of opportunities created on the walls of the classroom. Second, the actual classroom windows. Now see the difference of the 2 windows. The windows created on the walls, you are showing a very rosy picture of life to the children. You are creating different kinds of dream. You want them to become a great dramatist, a great poet. You want them to visit different countries of the world. the beautiful places of the world. But what about the actual classroom windows? The actual classroom windows, the real classroom windows, they open up to the slum, both symbolically and physically also. So the poet says that after their school is over, after all, where will they lead to? So the actual classroom windows would take them to the slum. And what would be their condition in the slum, that we will talk about at the end of this stanza. So let's try and understand different kinds of dreams that the authorities are trying to create for the children. So let's analyze each one of them. The poet says that on the sour green walls. Now look at the phrase sour green walls. Sour is something which is related to our taste, which is not very good. But here it has symbolical representation. Sour green walls refers to the poorly painted green colored walls. Walls with lots of patches on different places. So the walls are not in a very good condition. That is what the poet wants to say. The second word here is donations. Now the donations or the things which have been donated to the school have been kept there in the classroom. Either kept there in the classroom or they have been put up on the walls of the classroom. There have been several other things also which have been put up on the walls of the classroom, but the poet has taken just 5 of them, starting with Shakespeare's head. Now if you look to the life of William Shakespeare, now if you just have a close study of the man, he was not formally educated like today's persons of literature, having masters, having PhD, D.Litt and all. He just had a very small kind of formal education. He was educated up to most probably 7th to 8th standard. That's it. So in our layman's language, we can call him not to be a very learned kind of person. But William Shakespeare created such a history which is still challenged, is unchallenged. No one could surpass Shakespeare. Shakespeare got inspired and started writing plays. Of course, he wrote historical plays. He wrote about kings and princes and all. But still, his plays are still unparalleled. Not only in English literature, but all the literatures of the world. Till date, no one stands parallel to William Shakespeare. Now the message is clear. If William Shakespeare can do this, why can't the children? So a big kind of thing which have been put up on the wall to inspire the children to become a great dramatist like him, to become a great author, to become a great poet. So this is the purpose of putting up the picture of William Shakespeare. Now let's see the second picture. Cloudless at dawn. Look at the word dawn. Dawn is early morning. Dawn is a time just before sunrise. And if you look towards the horizon, towards the sky from where the sun is about to come, and if there are no clouds in the sky, it's a beautiful scenery of the nature. So there is a beautiful picture of early morning sky with no clouds in the sky and the sun is about to come. Purpose is to inspire the children by the beauty of nature. I told you earlier in the first stanza that poet believes that we learn a lot from nature. We can just make nature the part of our life. So it's just to inspire them. Look at the beauty of nature. Get inspired and do some beautiful things in your life also. That is the purpose. Now the third one. Civilized dome riding all cities. Look at the word civilized dome. Domes can't be civilized. People are civilized. Cities are civilized. Now you can just say that the picture of civilized cities with domes on the buildings. Now why does the poet has used this word particular dome? Now if you look back to history, 100, 200 years back, now people used to make palatial buildings, and on the buildings they used to create dome-like structures. So that showed a kind of affluence for the city. There was also scientific reason of creating dome on the buildings, but then here we just take it to be related to affluence. So the purpose of the poet is that once you grow up, you create opportunities for yourself, and why not start living in those civilized cities, start living in those buildings having domes on them. So that shows that is a kind of inspiration. That's a kind of motivation for the slum children to do good in life, earn good enough, have a quality life instead of living in the slum. So that is the purpose of civilized homes riding all cities. Fourth one, bend, flowery, Tyrolese Valley. Let's take the term Tyrolese Valley. Tyrolese Valley belongs to the province of Tyrol. There is a valley and it is called Tyrolese Valley. Belled, flowery. So when do we decorate a place with bells and flowers? During Christmas. So the entire Tyrolese Valley is decorated by bells and flowers. And it shows that the spirit with which these people are celebrating Christmas. Message is clear to the slum children. A day should come in your life when you should start celebrating Christmas in the spirit, with the spirit the people of Tyrolese Valley are celebrating. So it's all, I mean, you just can see the pictures. Most of the things are just to uplift the financial status of the children so that they can start having a quality life. Let's talk about the fifth picture or the fifth thing which has been placed on the wall of the classroom. And the fifth picture is of, there is an open-handed map. Now this open-handed map is the world map. Generally, the world map is three-dimensional, which is pasted on a globe. But if you just paste it on a wall, absolutely flat, then it is called open-handed map. So in short, there is a map of the world. Awarding the world its world. Now, what does the world of the map show? Different countries of the world. So this map similarly also shows different countries of the world, awarding the world its world. That means awarding a particular country its geographical locations and boundaries. In short, there is a world map which has been placed on the wall of the classroom and showing different countries of the world. Then what is the inspirational part here? First, to give you complete information about different countries of the world, and second, if you get time, if you get to manage resources, then you should visit those beautiful countries of the world in a time to come. So these 5 things have been put up on the walls to inspire the children. As I told you earlier, that these things are the windows of opportunities. But the poet says that these windows of opportunities would become their actual windows only after the authorities create resources for them, or the authorities make these windows of opportunities to be the real windows of the children. By the time, if these windows of opportunities are not converted into the real windows of the children, the different kinds of windows are there, and that is the actual classroom windows. That is what the poet is saying in this stanza. He says that, and yet for these children, these windows, not this map, their world. Now look at this word, this phrase, these windows. These windows are the actual classroom windows which open up to the slum. Or in other words, you can understand that after their elementary education is completed, they just get back to the slum. They have no more opportunities. So the windows that you have created on the walls are not their actual windows. Their actual windows are the real classroom windows which take them to the slum. The actual classroom windows take the children to the slum. And what do they find in the slum? Let's see from the lines. They get into the slum where all their future is painted with a fog. There is a difference between future painted with a fog and future showing endless night. Now once we say endless night, that means there is absolutely no future left. But if there is a future which is painted with fog, that means there is a lack of clarity. So they may have a future, they may not have a future. So there is a lack of clarity about their future. What happens to them next? They get into narrow street sealed in with a lead sky. Now, if you just look at the physical condition of the slum area, the streets are very narrow in between the two houses. The streets are so narrow that only one person can pass at one time. Now, once you look up towards the sky from these narrow space, what do you see? The sky is always lead. Lead means of grey color, and grey color stands for kind of depression, disappointment. So if the sky is sealed with a lead color, that means they have no bright future in their life. Somehow there are few people who attach this lead sky to the pollution, but I'm not taking that pollution aspect here because this poem is not talking about pollution. So we are just taking it simple to be lack of opportunity. Sky is never bright to them. The sky is always grey to them. That means they don't have that much of future left in the slum. Now, they are far, far. Again, this word far is repeated twice. Remember, far, far from gusty waves, first line of first stanza. The same thing is far, far from rivers, caves, and stars. So they are far away from the powerful forces of nature, including the rivers. Caves means the land extending up to the sea. So you can see that the rivers, the seas, and the stars. They are far away from being inspired by these forces of nature, and they just get to know about them through the words, through the books. So they don't get actual kind of access to the beautiful part of the nature to get inspired by them. This is what happens to them when they live in the slum. Now let's start with the third stanza of the poem. This stanza in particular talks about the relevance of the things placed on the walls of the classroom, number one. Now the poet is trying to raise another issue over there, and he wants to say that if you have created a kind of dreams for the children, do try to convert those dreams into reality. Now he talks about the irrelevance of the things that the authorities have put up on the walls. Let's start with, surely Shakespeare is wit. Now if we talk about the term wit, wit is a person who is very cunning by nature. But how can Shakespeare be cunning for these poor children? So here this word wit doesn't refer to cunningness, it refers to irrelevance. The poet says that you have put up the picture of a photograph of William Shakespeare on the wall, but under the given circumstances, the children would never be able to become a great dramatist like him. And they will never have an access to the works of Shakespeare, and even if they have access to the works of Shakespeare, now the Shakespeare doesn't talk about their world. Shakespeare always talks about kings and princes and royal life. So it may be possible that these children might not connect themselves with the works of Shakespeare. So this example is not a very relevant one. Let's talk about the second thing, the map. In the map, you have shown ships, lovely things, tempting things. Now they feel tempted to go to those places. They feel tempted to steal away from their original conditions and circumstances. Now, in order to go to those beautiful places, they need resources. And for that tempts them to stealing. So the example of map with so many beautiful things. You are showing them beautiful places, you are showing them beautiful things. But at the same time, you are not generating the resources for them. Then obviously, there is no any match between the two. Now that's why these things are irrelevant for them. Let's talk more about for lives that slyly turn in their cramped holes. Slyly means secretly. After the passing of each and every day, these poor children, they are inching towards the cramped hole, which is slum. Cramped hole is a kind of mouse hole. It's very congested, and once you are in, you can't come out. So with the passing of each and every day, these children are secretly, they are not even aware of the fact, but then they are inching towards the slum. So every day's activities are bringing them close to the slum. And what happens there once they reach to the slum? Now, after reaching to the slum, what happens? From fog to endless night. I'm sure you remember that future is painted with fog in the second stanza we talked about. And there also I told you that there's a difference between fog and endless night. So once they get into the slum, with the passing of time, they realize that there is endless night for them. There is absolutely no future for them. So from an unclear future, they head towards absolutely dark future, that is endless night. So the poet wants to say that once they get back to the slum, they don't have any future at all. Next, on their slag heap. Slag heap is a garbage dump. Dumps of garbages. So just imagine about these children. They spend most of the time on the slag heap, on the garbage dumps, looking for the useful things from the garbage. Now this particular sentence, or the next sentence, it clearly shows about their undernourishment, malnutrition. And what does the poet say here? He says that these children wear skins peeped through by bones. Now skins peeping through by bones, it refers to or having a very skinny kind of appearance, a skeleton-like appearance. So that shows their undernourishment, that shows their malnutrition, that these children are poorly nourished. They have very skeleton-like appearance. They don't seem to be a healthy children. So now these are the things attached to the life in the slum. They don't have future, and they don't have nutrition. They just live a very pathetic life in the slum. And there are certain more things which refer to the poverty of these children. After talking about the undernourishment of the children, the poet talks about their poverty. He says that the children are very poor. They can't afford even the smaller things of life. For example, he says that spectacles of steel with mended glass. They just put on iron framed spectacles with mended glass. Now suppose if you wear specs and if your glass is broken, what do? You normally go to a shop and you just get the glass replaced. But these children, they don't have resources, they don't have money to get them replaced. So what do? They just mend the glass. They just fix their glasses using some adhesives and all. And then again they put up. The poet has compared by using simile. And he says that these glasses look like bottle bits on stones. That means on the stone background, you just break a bottle of glass, and the broken pieces of bottle with the stone background. And if you look at them and look at the children putting on specs with mended glass, they look identical, they look same. So the poet talks about their undernourishment, the poet talks about their poverty, and then he gives a very important message at the end of this stanza. But before that, he says that all of their time and space are for the slum. Foggy slum, lack of opportunities, lack of clarity of future. So all of their time and space are foggy slum. They're confined to that environment. They live there for all the time. And this is their space of working, space of living. Now poet says that since all of their time and space are foggy slum, so there has to be something which can take them out of that background, out of that surrounding. So in the last line, he says that blot their maps with slums as big as do. Now look at the word do. Do means something which is very big. Now if you look at the word map, the portion of the slums in the word map has taken the shape of a do. Or in other words, in the map of the world, the slum areas have occupied a very good share. Now the word says that blot. Blot means just wipe out. So he says that wipe out the areas of slum from the map of the world. And how can you do that? The simplest way of doing this, that if there are no slum dwellers, there are no slums, absolutely. So how can you wipe slum areas from the map of the world? By creating or providing opportunities to the children. The moment they get opportunities in their life, they grow up, they become financially, emotionally, socially stronger. They move from the slum area to some other good areas, and they just become a part of the mainstream of life. So if you want them to come out of that slum area, if you want them to start living a standard life with others, then you need to create opportunities from them. And how can you create opportunities? The poet talks about in the last stanza. That is stanza number 4. Stanza number 4. In this stanza, the poet talks about the solution. Now, he's giving a kind of warning to all the stakeholders of education, like inspector, governor, and visitor. And this stanza starts with the word unless. Unless the map becomes their window. Which map? The map which you have created on the walls of the classroom. So unless that map becomes their window, what happens? These windows, that means the actual classroom windows, they shut upon their lives like catacomb. Now catacomb is a long tunnel leading to a graveyard. Now the actual classroom windows are actually acting as catacombs. So they just act like a long tunnel leading them to the slum area, which is almost their graveyard. So he wants this map to become their real window instead of the actual classroom windows, which ultimately take them to the slum, where it's almost like a graveyard for them. Now the poet says that break, oh break open. So the poet asks the authorities to break open these windows. The map, the windows which you have created on the walls. So break, oh break open these windows till they break the town. Now this is what I was talking about in the introduction. I told you that once the children grow up, they have their own needs and requirements, and in order to create resources for their requirements or fulfillment of their needs, they get involved into criminal activities for theft, snatching, robbery, even murders and all. Now after all, your entire city system, the peace of that system gets disrupted. Now these are the people who are involved in criminal activities. Then the poet gives a clear warning to the authorities. By the time they get involved into some criminal or illegal activities, change their windows. Now the windows which you have created on the walls, make those windows their actual windows of opportunities. Or in other words, create opportunities for the children. If you don't create opportunities for children, trust me, in the time to come, they are going to create a serious threat on the law and order situation of the city. So this is what the poet wants them to do. Now he gives the solution. I told you that he believes that nature is a big teacher. Nature has a great capability of making a person cool and calm and of understanding, developing sensitivity, developing so many life skills that can be developed by nature. So the poet says that apart from saying that give them exposure to the green fields, let them run on the gold sands. Now he says that let their tongues run naked into books the white and green leaves open. Just look at the point. Books having white and green leaves. So it's usually the book of nature which has green and white leaves. So the poet says that let their tongues run naked into the books with white and green leaves, or in other words, let them spend few moments in the lap of nature. So let them spend some moments. Let them go there and feel the freshness and the beauty of nature and get inspired. And that is of course going to change their lives in a great deal. And finally the author says that, the last line, history theirs whose language is the sun. Now the sun stands for light. The light stands for knowledge. Now the poet says that only those people could create history who had an access to the world of knowledge. The message is absolutely clear that give the children access to the world of knowledge, even they are going to create history like William Shakespeare and others. So this is what the poet wants to say in this poem. So that was all about the poem, An Elementary School Classroom in a Slum. I hope you might have liked the video, and if you like my video and if you like the presentation, please do subscribe my channel and press that bell icon so that you can be updated about my next videos and all. Guys, I'm also making videos on tenses. So I have I've uploaded 3 videos on tenses, and in my next video I'm going to upload the rules and the identification of 2 tenses, present perfect and present perfect continuous. And in that video I'll also be talking about the differences between the tenses. So please do watch, and it's going to be of great help to you. So after the completion of the series of tenses, then I'll be uploading videos on indirect speech and then determiners and models and on all the other topics of grammar. And of course I'm going to upload videos of the chapters of class 12th, class 11th, and of course 9th and 10th. So keep watching and be in touch, and thank you so much once again for watching my video. Thank you.